Welcome, chefs, to the Rundown. Today we are joined by Kirk Weisler. You might notice that there are now two Weislers in the room, and it's me sitting in on what might be a family therapy session, but it's actually Kirk just giving us all of his life lessons, and honestly, it's just a big morale boost, and I got to say, just sitting in on this conversation, it's been one of my favorite podcast episodes so far. We go further than just wedding insights, but we dive deeper into morale, charisma, consistency. We go into a whole bunch of different things, and I think you're all going to love it. So without further ado, let's run it.
Well, Kirk, thanks for being here. Dad, you guys, this is
Papa Kirk.
This is Papa Kirk. We talk about Papa Kirk all the time. This is Kirk Weisler, Chief Morale Officer in town. My dad, my hero, and he's in town for the weekend. And you reached out and said, let's do a podcast. I was like, oh, we'd love that.
Well, you've never invited me, so I thought I'd invite myself.
Indirectly, we've invited you.
Yeah. So you were here, and we've talked about you before on the podcast. A lot of the life lessons I've learned come from you. And Nate and I did an episode, I think, a year ago. We were like, what are some like life lessons you've learned? And all my life lessons came from you. And so people are familiar with you. They know you. And I would love to hear from you. Our audience is largely entrepreneurial based. I'd love to hear from you. So quick backstory. When I was trying college for 4 months at BYU, I was paying out of my pocket. I only could afford 2 classes at the time, guys. It was a religion class BYU makes you take, and then a history class. And it was like $1,600. And I was also engaged, getting married, going on a honeymoon, and enrollment for the next semester was due. And so was our rent, which was first month and last month's rent. And I called you and I said, like, I literally can't afford this. Like, I just don't know what to do. Like, I might put pause on college for a second, kind of focus on doing videos and whatever. And all you said to me was like, well, I never used my degree, so you have my full blessing. And I was just kind of like one of those moments for me. It was just kind of like, it wasn't like, it wasn't like that rhetoric of like college is useless, don't go. It's just kind of like, well, my experience was this, so you have my blessing.
Well, Jake, I just had so much confidence in you, and my experience was I didn't start college till I was 27.
Yeah.
So I thought, if you go and try something for 3 or 4 years and
Sure.
it blows up, you can still go back to school and still be ahead of your dad.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
But I said, what do you want to do? And you said, well, there's this online film thing that I'm really interested in, full-time filmmaker.
Yeah. Could you send me some money?
Yeah, could you
$400.
could you help with tuition, because I'm broke, Dad. And by the way, you've never paid me back that.
I did. Kept the spreadsheet.
I'm
I paid you back.
sitting in on a middle.
I have a spreadsheet. I kept you back.
No, yeah, and I've just been so impressed with
Thanks.
the people you surround yourself with and your network of people and just what you've done. I'm just blown away. So
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Like, tell us. I would love to hear. I know about you had this great job at Cento, and then you had kind of a mentor who kind of pushed you out of that in a way. Kind of baptism by fire.
yeah.
And you kind of discovered something you were passionate about, you love doing, and with the support of a loving wife,
So
it happened.
so as I understand your business, so as a dad, I just look at you guys and look at your videos and I go, oh, I'm in awe, because I'm in a different generation, and I got the proud parent thing
Sure.
and the blinders on, and I just think you guys are young go-getters. So there's that.
Sure.
But if I understand your audience, they're like you. They're all hang out their own shingle. They're all they're all entrepreneurs. And I spent a lot of time with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And so, but the journey of becoming an entrepreneur is the journey of uncertainty. It is, whether you have any kind of a Christian or any kind of faith at all, it's a faith journey, right? Because you're saying, this is on me, and I'm going to go do this thing. And there's uncertainty, there's hope, and there's a vision, and right. But there's a lot of things you don't know.
Yeah.
And so I have so much respect for your audience. So from the context of, if I understand what you're asking me, from the context of becoming an entrepreneur, I'll tell you about the uncertainty that I've had, and that I've learned to make some level of peace with, even after 25 years of doing what I do.
Yeah. Love that.
So I worked at a traditional job. The idea there was we're going to create 1,000 jobs in 2 years. And I wasn't leading this company. I just got invited to be on the leadership team. I had no idea. I'd never been in the industry before, but this man, my mentor, which we should all have a couple mentors, whether it's formal or informal, just people that we watch closely and learn from. He said, Kirk, he said, if you'll come with me, he said, I'll teach you what you need to know. He said, the reason I'm hiring you, even though you have no experience, is because you have the right outlook, the right attitude. He said, your natural orientation is sunshine. You bring something to the room. He said, people either choose that or they don't. He said, I can teach you the stuff, but this piece that you bring, I can't teach that. That's a choice that comes from within someone who makes a decision how they're gonna be. And so anyway, 2 years later, we had created 1,000 jobs, and it was the call center. It's not a glorious industry. It was a call center industry. It's the outsourced call center industry. All these jobs now are in the Philippines and India and that kind of thing. But back in the day, they were in small towns. And and the outsourced call center industry had very high turnover. Typically 100% turnover was acceptable. Some call centers, there was one right here in your state, ComCom, that had 200% attrition rates. I remember 30 years ago, they had billboards along I-15. They had billboards, they paid for these billboards year round. The billboards would say, if you'd like a career, they were constantly recruiting because they were constantly churn. They were constantly churning. I'm going to try not to talk with my hands this much with this mic, but so the industry said we had 17% attrition rate. So we were dramatically different than the other industry because of our focus on culture. So the industry said, we'd like to hear about that. And my boss went to this big conference in the Moscone Center in San Francisco, and he took me with him. For me, it was my first corporate junket. It was my first big conference, thousands of people in this industry. There was keynote speakers and breakout sessions for 3 days. And my boss was doing what they call a mini keynote. On this particular time of the day, there was only going to be 4 sessions to choose from, and my boss was one of them.
Okay.
And at this point, I've got 6 or 7 months rather of industry experience. So I'm.
And then for history, are you married? Like, what's the timeline? Like, where are you at in life?
I'm married.
You have kids?
Yeah.
This is. Okay.
I've got a couple kids, and they're looking like they could turn out okay.
So life
Some
expenses
promise.
aren't low.
No. So I'll try to just get there really quick. So
Yeah.
as my boss is 20 minutes before his session starts, and there's 400 people that have come into his session. Better Leaders, Not Better Managers by Art Coombs. He pulls me aside and says, Kirk, he said, let me tell you, this was my entrepreneurial launch. I didn't know it at the time. Let me tell you why I brought you to this conference. And I said, I know why you brought me, to have my first experience, to kind of feel for the industry and to attend some sessions. And he said, yeah. He said, but I brought you to give this presentation. And that was 20 minutes before go time. And the next thing that happened was he and I were in a restroom and a bathroom in the conference center because I was throwing up because he was not going to give in. And he was not going to give in. And I was like, oh, and my body was preparing for an event. I was in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And to be honest with your audience, there was things coming out of both ends in this bathroom.
The double
There was,
dragon.
yeah, it was and the next thing I heard, and I think this is an important part about mentorship and about having the right people in your life. Because if it was Nate and Jake, you guys would have done this for each other.
Yeah.
And the next thing I heard was, this was when we had the old, everything's but the push things where you push the button and the water would come out, and then you have to push the button and the water come out. He was over there holding down one of those buttons, and he said, get over here. And then he reminded me that I had done hard things before. So I was previously a U.S. Army Ranger. You wouldn't know it in this moment, but I was. And he said, hey, Ranger, get out here. He was calling me back to a time when I'd done hard things.
Yeah.
And he was reminding me, freaking man up.
Yeah.
Throw some water on your face. And then he began to speak to me in very short sentences. He said, hey, Kirk, he said, listen, he said, I know you think you don't know anything. He said, but you know enough. All you can tell these people is the truth. You're too dumb to lie. You don't have enough experience to lie about stuff.
You're too
crazy.
dumb
Right?
to lie. That's
Just tell them what we're trying to
I'm gonna
do
steal that one.
and the results we've been experienced so far and why we think we have those results. Just tell them what we're trying to do. He said, that's what they need, Kirk. They need raw and real.
Mm.
And he just kept repeating these very short sentences. You got this, Kirk. I believe in you, Kirk. Just tell them what we're trying to do. And I walked by, and then they said, "This is Art Coombs." And so they introduced Art Coombs and I walked out. So here's Art Coombs, CEO, executive, strong, freaking gold gym body, you know. And then here comes Kirk, shirt already soaking, just attached to his body, deer in the headlights. But when I got out there, I thought, I know what to say. And I just said, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. And we got really chewed out by the conference planner because they don't like speaker switch.
Sure.
But that was Cinda Daly. And for the next, well, I've spoken at that conference now for 23 years.
No way.
So she invited me back. And then 7 years ago, they asked me to be the MC of that conference.
Yeah.
Now, about a year, so after we created 1,000 jobs and all that.
Can I ask how you felt doing that? When that was also, were you just kind of like that all the days? Were you, do you not remember it, or do you feel?
Here's what I remember.
Yeah.
I remember walking out there, looking at this room full of people, and just saying, I'm not Art Coombs. And they're all looking at their program going, we know you're not Art Coombs, right?
Yeah.
I said, so now's a great time to go. I said, now's a great time to go to another session. If you stay here, here's what I can tell you. I can tell you what it's been like for the last almost year of my life working for a leader, not a manager, and what we're trying to do to create a culture that builds and breeds future leaders in the industry.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you our story. And because I think because I wasn't selling anything, because I wasn't pitching something, it wasn't a soft pitch for, hey, hire our consulting practice or our technology. Yeah. I was like Forrest Gump saying, just raw and real.
Wow.
And that authenticity, which you guys know, just resonates so deeply that they like, oh, this guy's not polished. He's not slick. He's just telling us, and he's raw and real. And in that audience also was George Spalding, who would hire me for his Pink Elephant conference for a decade.
Wow.
And a couple other people that said, would you come and tell that story to our leaders at my company? And I'm like, well, right. And so if you said, Kirk, how do you become a speaker? I don't know. I just know how to get invited to speak, right? And so so then as I started getting invited. Now to be very clear to you entrepreneurs out there, it's scary because I didn't say, oh, now that I've spoken, I'm going to go be a speaker. I didn't have those gonads. I was like, no. I was like, oh. But so then another friend hired me. Gordon Birch hired me. Ken Patey hired me. Art Coombs then hired me at his new company. And then that company took a long time to launch. It was cloud services about 10 years too soon, maybe 20 years too soon. And then I got reduction in force. I got laid off.
Oh yeah, I know that.
I got laid off. But now I'm making $11,000 a month salary. I never thought that was possible. So I'm scared to death. Like, I didn't like the last job that I had, but I was like, I'm making so much money. I don't know. Yeah. I'm scared. I'm scared. I've got this family at home. And so I talked to your mom.
Yeah, what was that conversation like?
And I said, I told her, I said, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure how to replace that income. And she said, Kirk, let's be honest. She said, you haven't been happy at your last 3 jobs like you were when you were at Cento working. You're happiest when you're working with people and teaching people and helping people level up. She goes, and the last 3 jobs, that hasn't been what you've done. So you've been making money, but you haven't been a happy husband. She goes, so why don't you go try to be a speaker? And I go, I don't know how to try to be a speaker. And she goes, well, there's conferences that have asked you to come. Now tell them that they need to pay you to come.
Yeah.
And that year, I was on unemployment in between speaking things. And I didn't know how to price myself. I didn't know how to price my services. I didn't know what I was worth. We probably should talk about that as another segment. I didn't know what I was worth. I didn't know what to charge. But by the end of that year, I had figured out enough stuff that the next year I was able to replace her income.
Wow.
And then for the last
all from word of mouth too.
Yeah, and the last 20 years have all been from word of mouth. That I don't have a. If I had a videographer in my life, I don't really have a promotional video.
If you had some marketing,
I don't do any marketing. I don't do anything. I just do word of mouth referrals, and that's worked for me.
Wow.
But go ahead.
No, just that's like the number one question we get in our community and entrepreneurs in general is no one knows what to charge out of the gate. And like you can kind of like look at like what other people are charging, but at the end of the day, you need to discover what your time is valued at.
Mhm.
Where do you feel like? How do you feel like you came to that conclusion? Was it?
Okay, so
It's a hard thing to ask yourself.
two things. One guy wanted to hire me. He'd heard me speak, and he wanted me to come tell that story to his leaders at his company. So he said, and so I said, well, I'd love to. He said, how much are you going to charge? And I just said $500.
Yeah.
Because I could drive to his place, right? I could drive. It was an hour, and he said, then you're not the guy I need.
Oof.
Wow.
I was like, oh, I felt so stupid. And then he smiled and he said, Kirk, he said, you haven't done this before, have you? I said, no, I've just been working. And he said, I'm going to pay you $3,500.
7x
Okay.
right there.
He said,
Jeez.
Wow, quick math.
and he said,
Good job.
and you're worth more than that.
Wow.
He said, here's what you need to know. So this beautiful business owner, this entrepreneur that was farther down the road than us, right? Said, Kirk, he said, in the world of consulting, you don't charge by the hour. You charge by the number of hours and years of experience you bring to the hour.
Wow.
And he said, and you're bringing years of experience to the hour I want you to talk to my leaders. I was like, oh. And here's a quick story that will help you illustrate this. This is a very old allegory or story, and there's a 1,000 versions of it, but the one I remember most clearly goes like this. A woman had a very squeaky stair on her stairwell, and she just couldn't seem to get it fixed. One of her neighbors said, there's a master craftsman, a handyman that we've used. You should give him a call. So she does. The guy comes over. She shows him the stair. He steps on it a couple times. He reaches into his tool belt, pulls out his hammer and a single nail. Places the nail. 3 strokes of his hammer. The squeak is solved forever. The woman's like, that's amazing. Thank you so much. How much do I owe you? He writes on a little ticket, $45. She said, $45? It took you 3 minutes. He said, read closely. She read above the $45. Nail and hammering, $3. Knowing where to nail and hammer, $42.
Wow.
Charge for knowing where to put the nail, right?
That's powerful. Yeah.
Well, the same thing with you guys, right?
Yeah.
Last night you were telling me, who was this? You lit up. You were talking about one of your heroes.
You guys, we're going to talk about John Dolan one day. John
Okay.
Dolan.
So last night I show up at Jake's house and he's got this big book. And he said, Dad, I got to tell you about this book.
The Perfect Imperfect, you guys.
And he opens it up and he shows me these pictures. But I'm looking at the pictures, but I'm looking at my son. And he is lit. Like all the lights in the world aren't on him. They're coming out of him. And this is someone, this is someone he admires and respects. And he's just da-da-da, right? And then you said, he charges how much? Something?
I don't know.
Tens of thousands.
But 6 figures.
Stupid. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So-
One of the world's best. Yeah.
So how come he does? And then you said, is it because of his reputation he can charge so much? Or is it because he did things a little bit differently with his own signature? Which one?
Right.
Which came with chicken or the egg? But at some place he said, this is my value.
Right.
You guys could double your price right now and probably increase your business.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how we think. We think I'm not worth that yet. There's some secret knowledge I have to have first. And some freaking arrogant narcissist might double their price and not have the skills to match it.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. Hopefully that's not your audience.
No,
No, but we talk about those people.
we do. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well,
I don't think it's the audience.
Yeah.
No one that follows you has going to have that orientation. So as we gain these skills, probably most of the time, my experience says we undervalue ourselves far too long.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something that we call the imposter syndrome, and it has 1,000 faces, and it kind of says it whispers darkness to us and stops us from stepping up and leveling up.
Well, can I ask you then, after you booked that, so you booked that 3,500 gig,
Mhm.
right? Was that your new price point moving forward?
Yeah.
Did you ever hit kind of like this kind of ebb and flow of you were down because people didn't want to pay that, and they're like, hey, maybe could you do $1,000? Because I think in our audience, people will raise their prices from, let's say, $2,000 to like $5,000 because they've booked one $5,000 wedding, but then they have a huge drop in inquiries. And so they fall back into, hey, I'm going to charge $500.
Okay, so this year, I just with 2 other speakers, we booked a program for $100K for a week.
Yeah.
And we're going to split that 3 ways. Okay, so that's great. But another program I did for $800 down in Tucson. The guy that started the National Speakers Association whose name is not coming to my mind right now, he said, when he decided he wanted to be a public speaker, this was back before there was really, public speaking is an industry now, right?
Yeah.
They have their own association, they've got all this stuff. But he really liked telling these stories. And he said he encouraged people, if you like this, commit to doing your first 500 for free. You won't make it to 500. Because along the way, as you build skills and you have impact, someone in the audience, and this is where my referral business comes from, someone in the audience, like if I get paid to speak, I just got paid to self-market it.
Right. Your business card
So
on the stage.
If they can pay my $12,000 speaking fee, great. If they can pay $7,500, great. My philosophy is, and every speaker doesn't have this.
Mm-hmm.
Some speakers are like, I'll never compromise my value. That's fine. That's fine. And if that's the way you want to roll that. That's not how I roll.
Sure, yeah.
What I've told God, what I've told the universe is, if I can make it work, I will. And I don't believe people are going to try and take advantage of me. And if they do, that's on them. So if they're like, hey, Kirk, we want you, but we're just concerned our budget doesn't. I said, what can your budget do? This is what we've got in our budget. I said, if it works for my calendar, I'll work with your budget. And that philosophy has served me very well.
Wow.
Because someone in that $2,500 tells somebody.
Yeah.
Tells somebody.
Right.
Tells somebody. And I just got a text this morning from APAWS, the Association of Professional Animal Waste Specialists. These people are professional poop scoopers.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
I'm putting the dots
Is that what it
together
sounds
here.
like?
Yeah, and they have franchises,
Yeah.
and there is so many professional poop scoopers. They have their own national conference and association.
Wow.
And because I wrote a book called The Dog Poop Initiative,
Great book, you guys. We'll link it
Fantastic
below.
book.
because I wrote a book called The Dog Poop Initiative, and buy it from my website, not Amazon, because they make so much money
We'll
off me.
link your website below.
Right. So, but someone at that conference, their spouse works at a company. We had the coolest speaker.
Yeah.
I spoke at BYU Friday.
Yep.
Someone approached me afterwards, and signed up for something else. So, and I wasn't pitching anything. That was
Right.
I wasn't pitching anything. The more you don't pitch, the more they want you.
Yeah.
But we've all been to the conference where they're, hey, and if you want my services, or they just they like it's this soft sell, and it's just you're like, oh, you're just kind of trying to not throw it out, but you're just kind of swallowing it.
Yeah. When we talk about videographers who are trying to build relationships with planners, and we always say, well, don't walk up with your business card, right? Like show them. It's more powerful to show them a video of what you can do than to just walk up and say, hey, use me, please.
Yeah.
I'm begging you for work. Like versus like our approach of like, well, if we can offer value to these planners and say, hey, we'll make you a video for your website or your marketing, and then all of a sudden they see what we can do, they're much more likely to want to use us again versus just like, here's our business card. We need you, please.
Call me sometime.
Yeah, please. And it's like, well, why would I hire you over someone I've already worked with?
So I went to a conference recently in Arizona, and because of your network is your net worth, right? So they were doing something called the Millionaire's Toolbox.
Yeah.
And they were talking about this. They wanted to do a blue collar event. So these are all entrepreneurs, right? And entrepreneurs running their own business get stressed out. We worry about all this stuff. Like we've got a good month and a couple programs lined up, but then God, there's nothing in April. But the bills are still going to come in April. So there's all that stuff. And as your business grows and you begin to add staff, and these were roofing companies and plumbing companies. These were all blue collar folks. Millionaire's Toolbox.
Yeah.
So as they were planning, they go, well, this is the first time we've done something like this. And so the guys in the room were like, so what do you need? And so this network of people trying to help each other, they go, well, we just really need someone to hold it all together. And we need an MC. And two of the guys like, oh, we know the guy. I got invited. I went down and met with them, and they thought they were going to interview me. Kevin Harper and Tom, they thought they were going to interview me. And I said, so this is the first time you've done it? Yeah. I said, well, and it's going to happen right here, like 6 miles from my house? Yeah. I said, well, then I'm not going to charge you for it if you'll answer these few questions I have. What's the vision? What are you trying to do here? And they both told personal stories. One had lost his brother to poor health because he never understood he had so much stress running his business that he was always in poor health and he never took care of himself. And he realized at his brother's premature death that if he would have had coaching and systems, right? That he could have had a very different experience being an entrepreneur. The other guy had built a few businesses, but also the crushing pressure of that and running it had made him turn to alcohol and drugs and until he lost everything, his marriage and everything. And as he picked himself up through group therapies and recovery programs and said, I got to do this better this time. And now he's running a beautiful HVAC business. And he just said, how come I'm doing this? He said, because I got help and I got coaching. And he said, and I feel compelled to reach out to the world of entrepreneurs that are suffering out there, and their marriages are in jeopardy, their health is in jeopardy. And so as they told me these stories, I said, okay, you've answered my questions. I'm in for the mission.
Wow.
But here's what I knew. I knew if I did this, and I did it genuinely, but I know from experience, when we give to the community, when we give, the world just gives back. When we're there to take and get. So I learned so much at that event. If no one at that event ever hired me, I would still be a better man because I went and what I learned as these other entrepreneurs spoke about their journey of overcoming the imposter syndrome, poor health, poor business practices, poor self practices.
Wow.
One story comes to my mind, but I don't want to.
No, I do want to ask you a question because, I mean, you're in the speaking business, so obviously charisma and soft skills play a big part to get to like the next level, being able to charge big bucks. And I'd say the industry that Jake and I are in, we just got back from a conference where I would say 50% of it was filmmaking, 50% was charisma, networking, trying to get into bigger circles. And you're someone who's very good at like soft skills, someone who always has a story, really good at speaking. So like, what would be something you would encourage people to do to get better at improving their charisma, soft skills, networking abilities?
Confidence.
How do you practice those things?
Ooh. Okay, if you're out there and you're watching these Superstars podcast, here's a bit of wisdom that has been helpful to me. Everything is a skill. Everything in life is a skill. That means it's learnable. Repetition is the mother of learning and skills. Repetition is the mother. So we've got to put in the reps. So I love your word practice. I'm going to recommend, can you put this in, if I recommend a TED Talk?
Notes, yeah.
Okay, so there's a TED Talk, and her name is Emily Saul. It's called The Power of Practice. It was her that inspired me to do my 1,000 push-ups a week for the last 2.5 years.
Wow.
It was her arms. I just said, if I can have arms like Emily Saul. But she talks about the power of practice, putting in the reps. And the lessons she learned, so to master anything, you first have to master monotony. You have to master monotony because you got to put in the reps. Says Michael Phelps, how many hundreds of thousands of laps did this kid put in, right? So we just see, we want the gold medal, but we don't want to, right? We want to be like that pianist and that swimmer, but we don't want to put in the reps. We want to be like you guys, but we don't want to watch all the video segments and we don't want to do all the modules.
Right.
Parker said that. He said copycats pop up with courses, and he'd say, are you upset about these copycats? And he'd say, if they put in the work I put in, they deserve it, but they won't. And they just kind of fizzled out, you know?
Well, as I recall, this is Dad's impression. That's why the first person Parker ever hired was you.
Yeah.
Because he could see online all of his students, which courses they had accessed, how much, if they'd been through the entire course and segment. This Jake Weisler had been through all of them a couple times.
Yeah.
And the others were kind of doing some pretending.
Yeah.
But he could tell they logged in, they watched the entire training video. This guy watched 5 minutes and then skipped.
Yeah.
And his video work shows it.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
He knew you'd put in the reps.
Repetition
So putting in repetition is the mother of learning skills. So now back to your soft skills question. What I learned, one of the things that has been helpful for me, like obviously I've been throwing words at people for, a couple decades, right? So maybe I've got some polish and things like that. But I've made huge mistakes. And when I come back to what matters most, I slur my words. I speak too quickly. If I watch myself on video, I can pick this thing apart. But I know this, the audience will forgive 98% of my personal flaws if they feel I'm being authentic and genuine. So authenticity and genuineness have to be at the forefront of the soft skill exercise. And what is charisma really? Well, they just seem like they're all this. It just seems like this ethereal thing that people have or they don't. I think it's the result of authenticity. I think it's the result of as your mom says, be interested, not interesting.
Oh, she's
So
a master at that. Yeah.
Yeah, show up to be
Very
interested in others. Don't show up to say, I hope they're being interested in me. And that orientation of being interested in others, because people are starved for attention. People are starved to be known and to be understood and to have someone care to know. And if you can show up with that, you've already shown up ahead of most people.
Wow.
So the orientation is, I'm not at this event to be interesting. I don't have to have interesting stories and catchphrases, and I don't have to look the best. I just want to pour into people. I want to learn. I'm a student, and I believe this room has all kinds of things to offer me. And that orientation is so attractive.
It's so humble.
Okay, now think about this. People are like, oh, I don't do good in other settings. I'm nervous. I'm okay. We don't want to throw anyone under the bus, right? So people have real anxieties, okay? But if you really unpack a lot of anxiety, it's me thinking. So the way out of anxiety is other thinking. To be interested in others. I don't know what to say. Ask questions. Well, that might sound stupid. It might, but you got to put in the reps.
Yeah.
Verl Workman, you know Verl.
Mhm.
Verl gave his kids this model called FORD. It's an acronym. So the FORD acronym. He was telling his sons because he said Verl thought he was pretty good with the ladies when he was his son's age, right?
Yeah.
So he sees his awkward sons and he says, "Well, let me give you a model." He said, "Well, we don't know how to talk to girls, Dad." He goes, "Well, let me give you guys a model." He said, "So when you're talking to girls," he said, just ask questions about their family. Ask questions about their occupation or interest, what they do for recreation, and about their dreams and goals. He said, and do it in that order.
Family, occupation, interest.
Tell me about your family, siblings, parents,
Recreation.
occupation. So professionally, occupation or occupation interest.
The Ford model.
Yeah. And then what do you like to do?
Yeah.
Recreation, and then dreams and goals.
No, guys, to apply this to like our setting here, we talk all the time about the consultation call. So when we get an inquiry, what did Caleb say? I made inquiry.
Yeah, you say inquiry.
What do you-
Inquiry.
what do you
He says
say?
Inquiry.
Inquiry.
When you receive an inquiry, they see their pricing and they want to put a
Do you
call.
have to coach him a lot like this?
No, I usually just let it go.
I am bad on phonics. No, Nate just lets me burn. But so we get an inquiry, and you get on a call with a couple, and a lot of our people are like, I'm just so much more comfortable behind the camera. I struggle so much on those calls. It's really like they feel like it's a sales call. Like you have to sell yourself to them. And Nate and I always say like, well, that's where you're wrong. You're not. If you have to sell them on you, you've already lost, right?
Yeah.
They should be sold on your work, on your brand, on your quality, and then on you, right? And how they connect with you. And like what you guys taught me growing up, just listen, right? Just ask questions and listen. And on our calls, and we just sit there and ask questions like, oh, who's coming in for the event, family? Who's flying in for the event? Are you excited if you have your grandpa there? Do you see them often? What do you guys do for work? How'd you meet? Why'd you pick this location? Oh, you have interest there. What's your dream, your vision for this event? And they just hear them. So then they get caught up telling how much they're excited about their wedding, this vision of it, this dream
Interested. And
so by the end of the call, you haven't said anything about your process or how you work as a videographer.
But they're thinking,
he gets
they really get me.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We've made the right decision with this Jake and Nate. They're just, these are great.
Yeah, like they literally end that call thinking, wow, they listened, they understand our vision perfectly. When all we did was like, in the last 5 minutes, they're like any questions for us? And they're like, oh, no.
Do you envision a perfect picture? And if you do, tell us about that. I mean, what do you really want? What do you really hope? As you're watching this video later, what do you really hope to see and feel?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So if what we give you back has those elements,
yeah,
right, and they go, absolutely, oh, we're excited.
Yeah.
We've already seen your stuff, guys. Whoa.
No, I also want to touch on guys. We're gonna talk a lot about John Dillon over the next few weeks.
Oh, yeah.
But I think a good example of, and I hope you guys will understand the spirit of what I'm trying to say here about John. But a lot of these true artists, they're not public speakers, right? They're not like a lot of us aren't we're not naturally, quote unquote, comfortable talking to a large group of people. And you could tell it with John, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But where John, the charisma wasn't maybe energy, but John's charisma to me was his authenticity, his genuine approach to his craft, and how he held nothing back, and how he was unapologetic about his photography. And that to me made him charismatic and made me want to listen to every single word he said. So whether you feel like you have a very engaging personality or you're very loud and fun and you can, light up a room or connect with people, I think what my dad's saying here is the most important thing is to just be yourself and to be interested in other people, and that will bounce back right at you.
I just want to add on to what Jake is saying. So I just finished a 4-day men's retreat.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we talked about at this men's retreat was the things that we say to ourselves and the horrific and powerful influence that has on us. As soon as we say, yeah, I'm only good behind the camera, I'm not good. As soon as we say I'm not good, we're not good. So we can't move away from our thoughts. We're always moving in the direction of our declaration. So if I am, so we did this whole exercise, I am capable, I am. So here's an example, a very personal example. If in my role as a speaker, it's me, audience, 100 people, 150 people, 45 leaders, 2,000 people, it's me, audience. There's a lot of names out there. And then someone walks up and you've met them at a previous event and they know you don't know them.
Yeah.
My insecurity was like in the driver's seat. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not really good with names.
I always say that.
And I said that for 15 years. Think about how pathetic that is. I'm not just saying I'm not good with names. I'm saying I'm excusing myself from making an effort before I make any effort.
Like I'm sorry, I'm always late. I'm always
Yeah,
late.
I'm always a few minutes, right?
Same.
I'm giving myself excuse. I'm to not make an effort at all, and I'm programming myself to be pathetic.
Interesting.
Less than. 5 years ago, someone said something to me, and I was like, "Oh, I do that, and that's not attractive, healthy, helpful." So I changed it. So here's what I say now. I go, so Nate walks up to me. I don't remember Nate's name. I go, oh my gosh, I'm really, really good with names, and I'm getting better all the time. Just remind me.
Nate.
Oh, thanks, Nate. Look what I just said. I'm really good with names, and I'm getting better all the time.
Right.
Nate.
You do say that.
But also, what a better way to become an interesting person by being interested. Like everyone always says, "Oh, I'm not good with names. I'm not good." You're in a group of 15 people, but if you put in the effort to be interested in every single person after they say their names, if you become known as the guy who always remembers everybody's names, you become interesting just by having that one thing.
Yeah. Even if you don't remember their names.
No, but it's like, oh, Kirk always remembers names.
Yeah, because he says it.
Yeah.
So Jake, your mom is a ninja. She's a question ninja.
Oh, she's crazy.
She's so good at that.
You need to have her on the spot. She's a question ninja. And so now here's mom.
She interview us.
So here's mom talking with one of the church ladies or whatever.
Yeah.
And mom's just asking questions. She would love it if they would ask questions back, but they don't have the skill. They haven't put in the reps.
Right.
So she asks questions and they leave. What do they say about your mom as they leave? That's the best conversation I've
Perfect impersonation.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
And not only that, they want to hang out with her now.
Yeah.
They've never felt so loved.
Yeah. And she's like, man, I just want to be a therapist full time.
But so, and Rebecca says, she says that they've never asked me anything, right? And she's like, and she wants that, but she's not going to get that from them, and that's okay. She's not throwing them under the bus, but she's like, they want to hang out because they think I'm their best friend, and all I really did was show some interest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she does it over and over and over again. She's just a natural at it.
Can I tell you guys the first interaction I had with Rebecca?
Yes.
Very first in person. So I kind of like knew each other. Like I'd been with Jake for a long time filming weddings, but the first time I went to Arizona, I was engaged to my wife. And so obviously Rebecca knew my wife's name. She had stalked us on Instagram. She knew all the back history. And when I met her in person, we're sitting at the table. And, I don't open up a whole lot about just everything intimate. But we sit there and Rebecca just says, Nate, like, wow, like how you're engaged to Kayla, right? I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, I remember being engaged as well. And, you're in your young 20s. And when you're engaged, there's a lot of anxieties and it can be crushing sometimes. you feel any anxiety right now? And I'm just like,
Cut to the core.
oh man, like it opened up like this crazy like
Wow.
it was more than just like, oh, how you feeling? It was relating like, I felt this, you're in your young 20s. This is how it usually is with anxiety. Are you feeling anything like that? And I'm just like, dang, that's a deep question. And it
I'm Nate,
started
by the
like,
way.
I'm
Nice to
Nate. Nice to meet you.
And here's my inner child.
Yeah.
Here's the
She's amazing.
Rebecca.
She is a
Yeah.
ninja at questions.
she's put in the reps.
Yeah. Yeah.
what
she was
what
really
she
good.
makes look effortless is the reps of the
Yeah.
ninja.
I do want to ask,
Yeah.
we get this question fairly often, is having the right partner in this industry is everything, right? Having someone who can know that you're gonna have a great month, but also a very bad month.
Right.
And that bad month might be a few months.
Right.
But but the whole point is you gotta look at the long term, and you gotta be along for the ride. And it takes a very special partner to do that. Which I think all three of us can say we're lucky to have that person in our lives. But I'm curious, when you were transitioning, and it sounded like Rebecca kind of pushed you that way.
Mm-hmm.
But what were some of those conversations like? Was it more so? Yeah, I just want to hear from you. What are some of those conversations like when you're really in the trenches of the first few years of building a business?
I was kind of a mess. The president of the National Speakers Association had seen me do a skit, Forrest Gump at the help desk,
Yep.
Mark Sanborn, and encouraged me to join the National Speakers Association, which I did. And so that put me in the room once a month with 30, 40 other speakers that were all either ahead of me or behind me or somewhere alongside me trying to build their business. And there's lots of aspects of your business and my business. There's lots of aspects and things that you're like, oh, I never thought about that. But someone else already has a system and a process for it. So there's things you could adopt and take home. So having a community, right? Having a podcast community where you dial in and just, I can pick up one or two things, right?
Right.
And that kind of thing. So that was important. And so I was grateful for that.
Mm.
Later, I would leave the National Speaker Association. And this is because of my own weaknesses, my own demons probably. But I would go there and they would talk about all these things you need to be doing to be a successful speaker. And I was only doing one of them, like speaking. Like I didn't know how to do the video. I didn't know how to do one sheet. I didn't have a good pre-consult. I didn't have a good follow-up program. I was like, it was so much that I began, the imposter syndrome, it began to feed the beast in me that says, there's no way you can be successful. You're not doing all the stuff.
Mm.
But they were saying these are all the things you can do. But what I heard was, these are all the things you have to do. So I was waiting for the wheels. I was waiting for the wheels to fall off of my speaking business every day. And when I finally realized, and it was a friend of mine, Roger Anthony, who's passed now, but Roger says, Kirk, he said, maybe you don't need to be a part of that community right now. People are calling you. You've got a good calendar. Maybe this isn't where you need to be. He said, I feel like you could flow with this current instead of fighting it. And it was good counsel. So I just stopped my membership. But I didn't stop my relationships. And so then I just started hanging out with Brad Barton and Chad and some other guys. And I just started to learn how to accept what life was already bringing me. And I can't imagine anyone in an entrepreneur role trying to build their videography business or whatever you're trying to build, not having some demons. And because there's insecurities and traumas that follow you from your youth, and they whisper darkness to you along the way. And, am I enough? Can I get this done? Can I do this? And so showing yourself up is important. Learning how to have positive self-talk is important. But having, to your point, some close, trusted relationships, people that encourage you to do hard things and call you out on the dumb things. And the dumb, that's a pretty negative way to look at that, Jake. Yeah, you know what? You're right. I got in my own head on this. Well, let's get out of there. And how can I support you? And having those rich conversations. I bet you guys have had some intimate conversations about hard things, right? Oh, yeah. And that's a skill. Yeah. The first time you try to give somebody feedback and they get defensive, you don't want to give them feedback. So listen, but we've got to be able to give each other feedback, because if we are each other's coach. If we're going to level up, right? And we go to this conference. You guys went to a conference, so you guys have a following. You guys could sit back and go, we're better than a lot of people, but right. But look, here's the model. They're still going to educational events.
Yeah.
and you're fascinated by the skills of others. So you're interested, you're curious. So living in inquiry, living in curiosity is better than living in this false sense of, complacency that.
Yeah, we never want to come across. We say this all the time that we've made it in any capacity. It's always we're trying to make it just like you guys are, because like you said, like everyone has like their own way of doing it, their own systems in place, and so it'd be so stupid to think that like your system is the system,
Yeah.
right? There's like 1,000 right ways to do anything, and I think you'd be naive to not look around and say, well, what can I learn from anyone, whether you're newer at it than me or older at it than me, Like one of the life-changing things that John said this
Back to
last week,
John.
talking about like, because I felt when you just said that about you went to that conference and it was like, here's what you should be doing. It's overwhelming. I hate that feeling too. I hate feeling like I had something that was working, and all of a sudden there's like a whole community out there who's like, no, do it this way, and then you kind of like almost bullied into becoming one of the sheep. I feel like that's very prevalent with like gear in our industry right now.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like if you're not using this gear,
Behind.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like the gear's not necessarily better, but for some reason, since the community consensus is it's the best one, you're ostracized if you don't use that.
You're
But
not using.
yeah,
Oh,
it's just weird, and
you,
I
you
hate.
must not have heard.
Yeah,
But,
I hate that. But John this week, and I think storytelling too, we always overcomplicate how to tell a story, how to capture things. And John this week was just like, he said, people overcomplicate weddings. He's like, there's 3 acts.
Beautiful.
You get ready, you get married, and you get drunk.
3-part play.
And that was just like one of those moments for me. I was like, that's the story. Like, and because we always talk about this, it's just that's it. Like, what else are you worried about? Film them getting ready for getting married and partying, period. And I think the pros and cons of having like, YouTube and this community in general is that you're open to so many ideas. And I think because of that, you start to overcomplicate the most simple truths about what you're trying to do, and just tell a story of people getting ready, getting married, and getting drunk.
Jake, I love what you said, but let's go back when you said there's so many ideas.
Yeah.
And focus is the way, right? Focus is the way forward. So many ideas, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to dial in and focus, the discipline and the skill of finding focus. So you're this person that you admire. It's 3 acts. Don't overcomplicate it, right? Look what he cleared out of his mind.
Yeah.
And so now he's like, I've got 3 areas I'm focused on. I want to capture the getting ready. What was it?
Get it ready, get married, get drunk.
I said, now we're doing, this is the thing. This is the moment. They're getting married. Capture that. And now they're going to let all this exuberance and energy out.
Yeah.
And we got to capture that. And by putting it in those 3 compartments, look how he cleared his mind.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, okay, we've got to get this and the bride's rooms and this and that.
Yeah.
You can kind of feel yourself ramping up. And I was doing that.
Well, that's where the anxiety comes from. You're overcomplicating it.
Oh, I was doing that when I was speaking business.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I got to do that. And I'm like, well, I don't have the one. My video sucks. I'm like,
Yeah. Right. No, it's true. Some of the best filmmakers in the world we've learned don't even have like a good website. It's just because it's like, it's one less thing to worry about.
I don't want you to put my website in the link because I haven't touched my website in 14 years.
Yeah.
Like the guy at my website still doesn't have any gray hair,
Yeah.
But my website is just a place where people go, oh, we should get Kirk White. Who's that? Well, go to his website. How do you get a hold of him? Go to his website. So my website is really just with a phone number and an email.
Right.
Contact information.
But I think that speaks volumes, though. I really do. I think that speaks volumes to you as a person.
Well, that's nice, and I accept that.
Yeah.
But my self-talk is what?
The opposite. Yeah.
My self-talk is my website sucks.
Mhm.
I need to really do that, but I'm not sure what to do. And oh, the phone rang. Oh, thank God, I can go somewhere and speak, and I can pretend this doesn't matter again.
Yeah, but I think, yeah. Well, we all feel that. And I think there's a lot of people who hyper-focus on their website, and they spend 40 hours a week making the perfect website, but their craft sucks. Or we know people who spend all their time perfecting camera settings.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, yeah, but your films suck. Like, good job. You've learned how to perfect camera settings, but you know nothing about networking or being a business. You know what I mean? So it's just
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
prioritization.
I'm going to flip this.
balance, yeah.
And maybe because of what I do, but when you guys did your first educational event, that one where you had everyone come out and you were in the desert, you went out to the salt flats and you had a DJ out there.
That was
The workshop. Yeah.
The workshop.
Yep.
Why did you do that? Because when you were doing that, I was like, I was so excited because maybe that's because the world I come from is workshopping but that seemed really rewarding to you guys. It seemed like you were in awe of the experience as much as the people that attended. When are you going to do that again? Or was it too much work? Or was it just...
We're doing one more this October in St. George. We have tickets available, you guys, still.
Oh, so I didn't... am I the last guy to know?
Yeah, do you know we went to Ireland last year?
You don't tell me anything. I learn about your life if I go on Instagram.
Yeah, so we did that was great. We rolled that success into another launch for an Ireland workshop, which we did last year in October. Went to Ireland for a week. Same thing.
Oh, so you weren't doing a wedding there, you were doing a workshop.
A workshop, yeah.
See,
crazy.
Like if you were Jake and Nate and your dad or your best friend's dad was a speaker who could tell stories or do a workshop, wouldn't you invite him to be a part? It just seems like
No,
it's not.
There's some low-hanging fruit right here.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good idea. It's pretty solid.
Yeah. Well, we're doing our next one is in St. George
In October.
Yeah.
No.
Potentially.
And Dad, I'd love you to come. And maybe
We'll
tell
talk
a
to Emma.
story or something.
We'll talk to Emma. It's all pretty ironclad, but we'll
Oh, so there's no room. Oh my gosh.
we'll see how we can work you in.
Oh my
It's
hell.
kicking you out.
I thought your dad was going to be here. He's that's him in the serving lane. He's handing out the chicken.
Doing ballet.
No, but yeah, we loved it. This is our last one this year for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
At least like that we're committing to. We've been kind of doing one a year, and we're kind of saying this is our last one just because we feel like we're being pulled in a few directions right now.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
We feel like we're making strides in our wedding brand.
Okay.
We're making the connections we want to make. We're filling our calendar with the gigs we want to fill it with. We're building the courses we want to build. And the workshop is such a time-consuming passion project with zero payoff. It's not about the money. It's all about just garnishing a community and, creating an experience for people and walking away kind of more fulfilled than you do with money. But because of that, you have to do it in the busiest time of the season. And it's a lot of work and it always pays off
No, I agree.
emotionally. But
Events are huge amounts of work.
since so we're kind of looking at we planned this workshop and then we filled our calendar with weddings all around it. And so it's just going to be like 3 weeks of we're not going to see our families. And
No.
so next year we're saying we're putting a pause on it. So if you guys want to be at the last big one this year, we'll probably do them in the future. But
When's the slowest time of the season for you guys in your industry?
see, that's a
the
hot
hard
topic.
part.
It's a debate.
Because it's some people on the East Coast and West Coast. And
You could argue it's a
different
mindset. You
times,
could argue like it's the weather, but it's like, well, then just book your calendar in Arizona during January or
Mhm.
Hawaii or,
Right.
kind of, it really, I think the whole thing is like, how much do you want to work? But for us personally, this year, our busy season is September and October. Like,
And
We
your
have-
workshops in October?
Smack dab in October.
yeah, I think we have
Right in the
13
middle.
weddings this year, and 9 of them are in September and October. And then we have a
Yeah.
week-long workshop in the middle of all that.
And no time to plan it.
Right now we're doing all
Yeah.
the
Well, we have a
planning. It's
partner,
all
Emma,
leading
our
up,
friend
yeah.
Emma, we went to
Okay.
Mexico with. She's our partner on the workshop. It's a collaboration event.
So she's kind of your event planner, if you will.
She does a lot of the heavy lifting.
Okay.
Most of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, she's the boss.
Yeah, she's the boss. But she was a speaker at our Salt Lake one, and we just loved her.
Yeah.
Become great friends, and so we like let's do collaborations. We did Ireland, went well. Doing this one, yeah, like you said, it's a labor of love. But the Salt Lake one, we walked away just feeling so because everyone was interesting there,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we walked away from so many moments where we're like, wow, that was surreal. Like just garnishing experience to people. We talk about on the podcast a lot, but there's this moment where on the Salt Flats, just in the middle of nowhere, lighting lanterns. And there's this picture, and there's 40 filmmakers, and there's one couple at the end of the night. We had 2 couples, but then at the end of the night, there's one couple with a lantern. 40 filmmakers want the same shot, so they're all just on top of each other. Like cameras on people's heads, by their ears. So they're just the tightest 40 people could be, laying, standing. And lanterns being set off, and our DJ's playing this vibey music, and we just look over at the crowd, and everyone's just crying,
Yeah.
just tears. Just filming. It was most spiritual.
I'm-
Yeah, no one was talking. Like we just lit the lanterns, music was playing. We all just kind of stood back and looked over, and everyone was just crying, just filming these lanterns going up in the air. I was like, man, it's like, where's Nate? Nate's nowhere to be seen. Nate's across the salt flats, and he's catching the lanterns, having his own moment.
Yeah.
As the lanterns kind of pick up the trash, and that was his moment. And I don't know, we just both had this surreal moment, and then we didn't get a chance to talk about it for like 3 days because it was the next day, we were busy, and then
returning stuff.
And then all ended. We cleaned up and we sat there on the stage and we just like looked at each other and was like, man, salt flats. And we just talked about it. It was awesome.
I love it.
But yeah, it's a labor of love, as you know.
Okay, so if you're watching this podcast, what I just experienced with you was the same thing I experienced with you last night when you were opening that book and reliving that moment.
Yeah.
Because when you were at this conference hearing from this legend, John Dolan, when you're hearing from this legend, John Dolan, you were like in awe.
Mm-hmm.
He was like almost a spiritual leader kind of thing. It was just, I'm trying to equate it. I'm not trying to say that we follow him, but
and John we trust.
Right. And John we trust. But so that same energy was the same energy right here.
Yeah.
So let's go back to interesting. Let's go back and talk about that energy. At some point, as you seek to be interested and you get good at this skill, there will be times when someone flips it and asks you. And there's going to be other times when you need to tell a story to help people understand your craft, your passion, your skill. It is my experience that anytime I can reconnect with the emotion of that story, there's a reason I'm telling this story. There's a reason I hung on to this story, because the story had a visceral impact on me. If I retell the story like a Vulcan, like without emotion, right? I can cover all the salient points, but in order for that story to have any effect, I have to reconnect with that effect. So they say enthusiasm is contagious. That's a catchphrase, and it's true. But it's true because of what enthusiasm is. Enthusiasm is two words inside of thus, God within. There's a spiritual transfer, an energy transfer. So if I want to have an energy transfer, I first have to have that energy.
Wow.
So this is hard because some people it's hard for them to be vulnerable. They don't know if it's okay. But I say it's not just okay, it's a necessity. If we're going to have an effect in telling a story, and that's even a story that we tell through film, we've got to allow ourselves to be affected by it. If we're just cold, calculating, and so caught up on our heads at a wedding trying to get the shot, and don't allow ourselves to feel the spirit of the wedding, I think we lose something that we're trying to capture. And then we're going to try to make up for it with clever editing and freaking music. No, if you have a spiritual experience, an experience in spirit at this wedding, and you allow yourself to be in love with what's happening and be in love with the people that are in love, I think that is somehow captured. And now when I'm editing and I can reconnect with, man, these were wonderful people. This was the coolest moment. I think that comes through in our work.
Yeah.
I don't know how it can't.
No, that's powerful. You guys should take note of that, especially as storytellers yourselves. And you leave a wedding, your job at the end of the day is to help the couple remember the emotions they were feeling on that day. Hopefully better, right? And like, wow, I know you captured that. You captured the essence of the day perfectly, the love, the emotion, the family. But if you just sit there and send them to deliver a, cookie cutter slideshow, you lose all the emotion. That's, and I think that's where the hang up is of like why you can't charge more, why you can't be a John Dolan is because you're not taking the risks to tell the stories the way you saw them through your own lens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's powerful stuff.
Artwork. It's artistry.
Well, I have loved this conversation.
I have
Overdue.
Oh yeah, overdue.
I've watched a lot of these podcasts, and I thought, man, and I've heard him tell stories about me, and some of them more accurate. Some of them, I don't know if he has another father. But to be here, because I invited myself.
He's in town. He's like, hey, can I swing by the studio?
No, I really wanted to sit down with you guys. I really wanted to interact with you, and I just love how you interact with each other.
Thanks. Our audience is going to love this. I loved it.
Can I ask one final question that's just burning in my brain right now?
Absolutely, Nate.
You're a very intentional person.
Right.
Can you tell me the story behind your socks?
My socks. Why my socks don't match?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the abbreviated version.
Okay.
So I came back from Australia. You were just little. It was my first program in Australia, and I was trying to bring something home. So I'm in the gift shop, and I buy some kangaroo scrotum pouches. So they've cut off
Not the answer that you're going to have.
It was a great episode, guys.
So they turned these poor kangaroo scrotums into leather pouches with no seams. And I thought that's clever. So I bought some of those. I thought those would be kind of cool to give out. Your mom, by the way, threw them away.
Didn't like them.
She was not going to let me take them to church and give them to some of the guys. So, and I brought a 7-pack of socks, and the socks were all 7 pairs were different, and all 7 pairs had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They were the days of the week. And this was before the happy sock movement in America. Well, when you're a dad, don't do this to your dads, but when you're a child and you're like, what am I going to get dad for Christmas? His birthday, Father's Day, right? And you're always trying to make something up. Well, now it seemed like I cared about socks. So for the next 10 years, I got socks. And soon I've got several hundred pairs of socks. I've got so many socks, I can't wear all the socks I've got, so I start mismatching the socks. And then when I get a good workshop on intentionality, and I go, I need to be more intentional and focused. And some people start their day with affirmations and non-negotiables.
Right.
So I was building that into my morning, and I said, oh, wait a minute. I grabbed 2 mismatched socks, and I said, I'm going to create an affirmation out of these 2 socks. So I grabbed the Hulk and Captain America, and I put them on, and I said, my affirmation is, today I am like the Hulk. And the Hulk, don't make me angry. Yeah, but what happens when the Hulk gets angry? And why is he really angry? But most of the time when the Hulk goes Hulk, when he goes David Banner Hulk, it's because his life or the life of something he loves or someone he loves is being threatened. He finds his strength under pressure and adversity. And that's where we all find our strengths. So I thought, right, what is my strength? And then the Captain America, we all remember the first Captain America.
Also a better understanding of Hulk than Marvel has ever done.
Yeah, Marvel.
So, and then the Captain America sock was the very first Captain America, which is, they're all good, but this was my favorite one. Remember, he's a skinny little kid, and the entire platoon, he's training, and they're all making fun of him, and he's coming in last, and they're hating on him and ridiculing him. But when Tommy Lee Jones' character, the general, throws the fake grenade in the middle of the platoon, and he says, grenade, they scatter, except for one man who threw himself on that grenade to protect the people that were disrespecting him. But he still valued humanity more than he valued being respected. And so I thought, so today I'm going to look for that humanity. So that was my thing. So then I give a keynote talk called My Socks Don't Match, and That's on Purpose, because for the next year, I'd been mismatching my socks and creating an affirmation for my day. So today this has got a whole bunch of superheroes on it. And it's, what is your superpower? And so I would say today, consistency is a superpower. Anyone who's consistent, that's reps. Anyone who puts in the reps is consistent. But if I'm consistent for a week and then I don't do it the rest of the year, that's not consistency. Consistency is, right? Consistency is a superpower. Consistency is a superpower, and anybody can choose to have it. So my superpower today is consistency. This is about commitment. It's that story. This is bacon and eggs. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
Okay. Bacon and eggs. So they both are a part of breakfast, but one requires a lot more commitment than the other. Like the chicken makes a contribution to breakfast, but the pig, he's absolutely committed. He's totally committed. So today I'm totally committed.
Will.
So today's about commitment and my commitment to consistency. So there you go.
Wow.
That's
okay.
great.
Okay. Yeah.
I was ready for like I just packed the wrong ones.
Yeah, I was also ready for that. Yeah,
great.
like,
No, I've got ostriches. I've got Abraham Lincoln. I've got
awesome.
got corn pops.
I seriously thought it would just be like, yeah, I'm going to get my protein in and like something with the superheroes. I didn't know what that was.
That could be
too.
too. You could do because you guys
weak affirmations.
Yeah, I was like, that's probably what I would have done.
No, but if you want to level up your affirmations, I'll give you some coaching.
Here's my ebook.
Okay,
that's great. Dad, where can people follow you, find you, get your stuff? I mean, we'll link it all below, but
Instagram. I got two Instagram accounts. One is just my name, and the other one's the Initiative Institute, which I'm launching this year.
Yep, awesome. And also, we'll link below 2 books. I think I've talked about them before on the podcast. The Dog Poop Initiative, which you mentioned, Best Smeller out of Crazy, and the Cookie Thief, which if you go to my YouTube channel, my OG YouTube channel, and you go to my OG videos, it's still there. I made a video about it. We'll have another conversation about that one day, I'm sure, but we'll link those below along with Initiative Institute and Kirk Weisler.
Here, let's do this too.
Yeah.
If someone makes a detailed, thoughtful comment about something that was meaningful in this podcast for them, I'm going to mail 5 books to the 5 most meaningful comments. And I get to decide whether they're meaningful or not.
No.
And then can we DM them and get their address? And I will personally mail them a book and thank them for
thank you.
being a part of your community and being a part of this podcast. And I'm happy to do that.
For the ones who finished Cherish, that's you.
Cherish and Courtney.
We have 2 faithful listeners who
we'll send you a book about poop as a thank you. There it is.
It'll actually change your life.
It is a great book.
Well, Dad, thank you for being here. Love you.
I love being a guest on the Runaway Vows.
Yeah, this is the rundown, we call it.
The rundown. The rundown. Okay. It's good to be on the rundown.
Thanks, Dad.